feeling your love permeate each and every aspect of our consciousness, even the dark corners, the hidden places. In that realization, we are blessed. We're lifted. We're transformed by this realization of your love here, now. As we rest in your embrace, we are guided. We are informed. We are inspired to be your hands, your feet, your tongue in this world. And for this realization, we give thanks. And so it is that together we say, Amen. So, it just doesn't stop. Never does. That flow of love moves through us. It allows us to be empowered. Empowered to be the expression of the Christ here in this moment. And that is expressed by Jesus. I've referred to it as the one great commandment. The one great commandment being love God with all your heart, love your neighbor as yourself. I find, though, that here in this Valentine's week, by the way, happy Valentine's week. That's coming up on Thursday. Guys, you need to remember that. Girls, you need to remember that as well. I mean, this is an equal opportunity ministry here. Yeah. So, we have my clicker. All right. So we've been looking at the one great commandment in Matthew, but I'd like to offer you the one great commandment in Mark. This is Mark 12, 28 to 34. One of the scribes came near and heard them disputing with one another, and seeing that he had answered them well, he asked him, "Which commandment is the first of all?" And Jesus answered, "The first is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these." Then the scribe said to him, "You are right, teacher. You have truly said that he is one, and besides him there is no other. And to love him with all your heart and with all the understanding and with all the strength, and to love one's neighbor as oneself. This is much more important than all whole burnt offerings and sacrifices." When Jesus saw that he answered wisely, he said to him, "You are not far from the kingdom of God." After that, no one dared to ask him any question. I point up this one. It turns out that when you look at the chronology of the writings of the books of the gospel, Mark is actually the first gospel to be written, somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 80 CE, or AD if you were used to that old terminology. But it was not until the 80 to 90 time frame that Matthew and Luke were written, and it was not until the 90 to 100, maybe 105 time frame that the Gospel of John was written. So we look at Mark as being more original than Matthew and Luke, but only because of its proximity to the crucifixion, which was some 40 years prior to the authoring of this. However, I want to use this passage because in my discussion of the one great commandment, the one great commandment being those two commandments combined, in Matthew, the two commandments are joined by the phrase, "and another is like it." And so in this rendition of the two great commandments, The scribe refers to, you have truly said that he is one, and besides him there is no other. In unity, we consider that to be an expression of all of creation. There is no one beside God in all of creation. That is to say, we are not beside God in all of creation. God is all. And in that, God is one. Hear, O Israel, that God is one. That is something that we forget. We put ourselves apart from God. We separate ourselves from God, and then we bemoan the fact that we don't feel connected. We don't have that community, or we don't have that understanding of our true relationship with God. And our true relationship with God is that we are the expression of that one Son of God, the Christ. And that one Son of God is not separate from God. That one Son of God is merely the expression of God here in creation. So we are the expression of God here in this creation. Amen. And to love him with all your heart and with all the understanding, with all the strength, and to love one neighbor of yourself, this is much more important than all the whole burnt offerings, which were dominant in the religious practices of that day. So, as we look at this commandment, there is something that is implied by this commandment. By loving God with all your heart, all your mind, all your strength, what you're doing is you are committing yourself to that relationship. You are acknowledging and you are engaging that relationship. And that commitment is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about commitment as an expression of unconditional love. A commitment as an expression of the one great commandment. Now, I'd like to take this a little bit further. We celebrate Valentine's Day as a romantic holiday, right? Candies, flowers, dinners out, intimate expressions before the fireplace. But it is also about commitment. It's not just about romance, it's about commitment. And I'd like to talk about another expression of commitment. A couple, back in the 90s, a couple was wanting to have a family. They were not able to, so they decided to adopt. And they adopted this young man as an infant. They adopted this infant. And they named him Nick. And it was such a joyous addition to their family. They found out about 18 months later that the birth mother of Nick also had another child. And so they decided, well, let's adopt the birth brother of Nick, and they will be together. And so Linda and Roger Cruz adopted Nick and Zach, and Nick and Zach were inseparable. They loved each other. Nick, in this image of Nick hugging Zach in a bathtub, that was how their childhood emerged and evolved. But it turns out that Nick was not a very social creature. And as they got into elementary school and they started riding the bus, they would go down to the bus stop, and there would be other kids there at the bus stop waiting for the bus. And Zach was a very gregarious, engaged, social individual, but Nick decided to wait across the street. That was where he waited for the bus. And over the course of time, the other kids started to shame him. They started to bully him because he was so withdrawn. He was so socially unprepared, incapable. And Zach, being 18 months younger, was, well, as he put it, he didn't have the strength to stand up for his older brother. And so his brother was bullied throughout middle school and high school, and Nick decided, and Zach related that Nick would have these sessions of just pent-up rage being expressed. At one point, he walked in on Zach. Zach was dancing around to the music of a song that was about a school shooter, and he had a shotgun in his hand, and he was shooting imaginary targets as he was dancing around the room. Well, it turns out that Nick decided to bring this fantasy to fruition, and he walked into the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School and killed killed 17 kids on Valentine's Day 1 year ago. I had a video of Zach visiting his brother the day that he was arrested. There's an article in the New York Times. If you want to see the video, you can go to that. Search for Zach Cruz in the New York Times search bar. But what you'll find is a very touching encounter. The sheriff deputy who was interviewing Nick was going along just fine, getting his testimony about what happened, when Nick decided, well, I want to see my lawyer. And at that point, the interview had to stop. But Zach had arrived at the police station, and there was nothing to keep the deputy from letting Zach talk to Nick, and in fact, they recorded that conversation, and that was the video. That's the video that you'll see. But there, in that video, it is very apparent that Zach had a commitment to his brother. He, as he's put it, Nick, I'd tear my heart out for you. Why did you do this? And then he goes on to say, I know that when we were younger that I didn't stand up for you. I know that the kids bullied you, and I wasn't there, and you probably thought I didn't love you, but that's not true. I was just too weak. I couldn't stand up to them. But I love you with all my heart. And here is Nick, the shooter. He is handcuffed. He is barefoot. He is chained to the floor, and he is sobbing because when Zach told him that I love you with all my heart, he broke down crying. And then Zach said, you know, people think you're a monster. And Nick's response was, a monster? Zach went on to be a frequent visitor at the jail, even though he knew that he would be ostracized in his community because he was there supporting his brother. But he chose to support his brother and not be so concerned about the community ostracizing him because he had a commitment to his brother. He was family. In fact, he was the only family. Roger had died, the father had died of a heart attack in 2004, and Linda had died of pneumonia a year before. And so they were living with a friend of their mother's. Zach, being a into skateboarding, he was out skateboarding on February 14th last year, and the guardian, the lady that the two of them were living with, had run up to him in the skateboard park and said, "Did you see what happened? Did you see what happened?" And she showed the phone to Zach, showing the school shooting and the reference to Nick, and it was the day that his world fell apart. Now, this is not to in any way approve of Nick's behavior or justify Nick's behavior, but I wanted to tell you that story because it is an expression of a commitment that arises from unconditional love, and it is a commitment that even in the face of ostracism, Zach was willing to support his brother. Turns out that Zach subsequently broke into Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, and he wanted to see how this unfolded. And so he was arrested on burglary charges. And when he was arrested on burglary charges, he needed to make bail, and he was able to make bail, but the sheriff's department held him for a number of days after he made bail. And there was a legal group called Nexus. That's not to be confused with the online repository of legal sources, but it's a group that takes on the difficult to and the underrepresented population of siblings and parents of shooters. Their role is to be representative of those people who had little knowledge or influence, apparently, on the acts of the shooters. But this group, founded by a gay couple out of Virginia, heard about Zach Cruz's situation, and so they followed up, made sure that he was released as he should have been, and they subsequently adopted him, even as an adult. He was 19 at this point. Even as an adult, they adopted him, and now he's living in Virginia, starting a new life. But here is Zach Cruz, who was so committed to his brother and feeling guilty that he wasn't supportive of his brother during his middle school and high school years. Wow. Rips my heart. Jesus offered us this on commitment. I'm sorry. Let's start with William Hutchinson Murray. He's a Scottish mountaineer. This quote is often attributed to Goethe, but and in fact, several years ago, I used this quote, and I thought it was from Goethe, but it's not. It's from this mountain climber. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no man could have dreamed of would come his way. Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. As we look at the involvement of Nexus in Zach's life, he committed himself, and providence responded by bringing the resources to his aid to help him through his extreme difficulty. In fact, he is now living in Virginia, as I said, but he has started a nonprofit. Zach, as a 20 or 21-year-old now, he has started a nonprofit that is to help kids who are being bullied. And when one commits oneself, providence steps in. Well, as we look at the teachings of Jesus in Luke 9, now Luke was, again, written about 10 years, 12 years after Mark, as best as scholars can determine. In Luke 9, 23 to 25, if anyone, this is Jesus speaking, if any want to become my followers, let him deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who will lose their life for my sake will save it. What does it profit them if they gain the whole world but lose or forfeit themselves? Now, the traditional interpretation of this is that in order to follow Jesus, you must take up your cross. Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, said that cross is, metaphysically interpreted, cross is intended to mean the crossing out of ego consciousness. And so when we look at this from that metaphysical perspective, the cross is about crossing out ego consciousness. What is left when we cross out ego consciousness? It is the Christ consciousness. And when we look at this passage, for those who want to save their life, their ego life, will lose it. And those who lose their life for my sake, for the sake of the Christ, will save it. What does it profit them if they gain the whole world, the ego perspective, but lose or forfeit themselves? That is the awareness of their relationship with God. This commitment to being the expression of God, to loving God with all your heart, to loving your neighbor as yourself, that commitment is a commitment that is one that when you step into that, providence will respond. When you step into that and let go of your ego desires, let go of your ego motivations, providence will respond. You may not be rich and famous, but you will have fulfillment. As we look at the dynamics of commitment, remember that I'm talking about it all being consciousness. We are here as flesh and blood. We think that we are separate from each other. That is just the vehicle through which our consciousness is being carried into this world. The reality of who we are, is consciousness itself. And we are one with God in that God is consciousness itself. So when we look at this idea that once we commit ourselves, what are we doing? We are declaring to our own consciousness, which is connected to the consciousness of the one that is all, we are declaring a position. We're declaring an intention. We're declaring a movement in this creative space. And the creative space, which is imbued with the one that is all, God itself, that creative space will mold and configure such that our commitment is made clear. And our path to its fulfillment is shaped so that we can move through it. Now there's a difference between saying, oh yeah, I want this, and declaring your commitment to the fulfillment of that. There is a difference in quality. And so it's important for us to realize that commitment itself is more than just the statement of the words. It is a movement of the heart. It is a movement of consciousness. It is a declaration of intention. And I'd like to take you through some of the benefits of commitment. First of all, self-respect. You commit yourself, you engage that commitment, and you come to its fulfillment, or you come towards its fulfillment, there is an aspect, there is a quality. Somebody left a lozenge for me. I know who that was.
The lozenge fairy.
Thank you. Okay, I'll take advantage of it. I'm not going to be speaking a whole lot longer, but I'll make use of this nonetheless. So there is self-respect. What does self-respect offer you? It offers you a way of engaging fearlessly. Engaging your experience fearlessly. Clarity. Commitment allows you clarity. Clarity of purpose. And what does clarity do? Clarity takes away the confusion of what you should do next. When you have declared your commitment, that becomes the goal to which you are moving in that particular theme of your life. It allows you to look at that goal and to decide, is this thing that I'm doing right now, does it contribute to the achievement of that? If not, let it go. Is it Maria Kondo that has this thing about if things in your life do not bring you joy, get rid of them? Well, if decisions that you make in your life do not bring you towards the fulfillment of that commitment, let them go. Let someone else do them. Fulfillment. This idea of fulfillment is, well, the quality of fulfillment is truly the quality that we strive for in our lives. Fulfillment. How many have arrived at the end of their lives with regret? Lots. Those who arrive at the end of their life feeling like their life has been full and filled, that they have had a fulfilled life, ease into this transition to this other way of living, back into the embrace of God without fear. Trust. When you have committed yourself and when you have demonstrated your fulfillment, your path towards that commitment, people look upon you and say, now there's a person that I can count on. There's a person who knows who they are. There's a person who knows where they are going. And if I get a commitment from them, I can trust them that they are going to follow through. Courage. As we demonstrate to ourselves that we have the gumption to move towards our commitment, we are becoming more and more fearless in our experience. Boldness. Boldness. What does it mean to be bold? It means to be aware and willing to express that awareness of who you really are. You step into life and you express yourself. You show others that you know who you are. It empowers them to find out who they are. And when you are influential, cut that out back there. That's distracting. Where was I going with this? Okay. Boldness, yes. When you are expressing yourself boldly, you are empowering others to do the same. And when we come back to that story of our lives, and we look upon our lives and we see that I was a positive influence on others. I may not be able to even identify who I was a positive influence on, But I know that from my actions, I was a positive influence on others. My life will be satisfying. What more could we ask? We come to the end, we look back and we say, wow, I had an influence in that time. And the people that were touched by me were lifted, were empowered, were made stronger, and were made bold. Can you think of anything more fulfilling than that? We'll have our meditation. As we come in, receptive. We open ourselves to the flow of love. It's unconditional, loving, healing energy arising from the heart of God, from consciousness itself. And allow that feeling of unconditional love to spread through our consciousness. This feeling will be inspired by another person. Will be inspired by a pet. It may be inspired by a sunset. That feeling of unconditional love is the truest experience of the divine here in this moment. Like a tub of warm water, we immerse ourselves in it and feel it lift us. Make us weightless. This unconditional love is always available to us. All we need to do is be quiet. Express our intention to experience it. And set aside all other thoughts. And in this realization, we are transformed. In this realization, we are offered the path of commitment to unconditional love, being the expression of the Christ in this moment, being the hands, the feet, the tongue of God in this moment, imbuing our relationships with this loving energy, allowing ourselves to be the messengers of this unconditional love. Here, now. Imagine your day from this point forward being the expression of this unconditional love. Imagine the ripples of loving energy you will spread in your wake. Imagine all of those who will be affected, influenced by the love that they are feeling from you. And this day can extend to the next day and beyond tomorrow into this week. And in this practice of unconditional love to the moment, next week, next month, next year becomes your path in life. And in that commitment, your life is filled with love. And in this awareness, we come back into this time and space, sharing the words of the Lord's Prayer.